Hello, everybody. This is Renault, and today I am doing the third and final installment on Scott Kurtz, this disgusting sack of shit here. And everything I've said about Scott Kurtz turned out to be correct. I just want to highlight the information just because, not everybody knows who Scott Kurtz is, especially since he's kind of a nobody, as quite literally. Now, for those of you who don't know, Scott Kurtz was big in the webcomic scene in the early 2000s, and after about 2010 or so, he kind of just faded into obscurity. And so he's lately been popping up, trying to get in fights with people to try and stay relevant. Upon my review, however, that's not entirely correct. Scott Kurtz does not pick fights with people to try and become relevant. Scott Kurtz picks fights with people because he's a cantankerous asshole and it's the only thing he knows how to do, and his work can't really speak for itself, and so he has to garner attention by picking fights. It's something he's always done, whether he was big in the 2000s or not. It's just what he does. He's a cantankerous asshole who sticks his nose in other people's business and picks fights. And not even when he's not picking fights, he's just an asshole. It's just who he is. Now, like I said, this is what he looks like. Some people have mentioned that he looks like a grimace, and I'm like, wow, that's perfect. And that's why I made it my starting image. Now, previously, I went over who Scott Kurtz threw Doug TenNapel under the bus, and he's such a moron, he actually implicated himself, not just Doug TenNapel, but Mike Nelson as well, by saying, oh, Mike Nelson, you can't claim you didn't know what Doug TenNapel was like. You've always known what he's like. But Scott Kurtz also knew exactly what Doug TenNapel was like, and then did several projects with Doug TenNapel. So that's the kind of hypocritical idiocy that you've come to expect from Scott Kurtz. He was so busy trying to be morally righteous, he threw Doug TenNapel under the bus. And so he actually has a long history of just being this self-righteous, hypocritical moron. For example, let me show you this. So here he is. This goes back to May 11th of 2006, way back when Gamergate was practically dead. Let's read some really old tweets here. I disagree. Gamergate is a hate group. Boy, where have you heard that before? And they're on the wrong side of not only history, but decency. Good luck to you. Comics fandom can't scream that this medium is for adults and then cheer on Frank Cho's sexist bullshit. Growing up means truly growing up. Oh, really, Scott? Sexist bullshit for Frank Cho. This is referring to as Frank Cho drew a sexy image. And I think there's a thin veneer of racism here because Frank Cho takes a metric fuck ton more shit than J. Scott Campbell takes. I mean, yeah, J. Scott Campbell takes crap for his cheesecake, but it pales in comparison to the crap Frank Cho's has gotten in the past. And so don't think we haven't noticed that, privileged white progressives. Actually, I don't think he's even a progressive. He's just a piece of shit. But there are others who are progressives, and we do notice that minorities take a crap ton more shit than white people, like Frank Cho taking a lot more shit than J. Scott Campbell. But anyway, here he is, lecturing the fandom about Frank Cho's sexy images and the kind of cheesecake kind of drawings that he likes to make. But what's Scott Kurtz do? Like I said, Scott Kurtz has a long history of being a two-faced hypocritical moron that's just who he is. It's what he is, a two-faced hypocrite. He whines about Frank Cho drawing sexy stuff, and then he's got this. Here's another PvP by Scott Kurtz. As you can see, it's very sexy. This is eye-catching because, is it panties? What is this? So anyway, yeah, we all see it. He's a two-faced hypocrite and a moron. And this one, you may say to yourself, well, what's so bad about this one? She's just kind of looking, girl next door. She's just looking at the audience. But wait a minute. Cover by Frank Cho. Wait, was this cover really by Frank? Yeah, it was. This cover was by Frank Cho. Oh, okay. At first, I just want to draw your attention to this. She's not... Okay, he's looking at the audience, and he's not... I think he's looking at her, but she's unaware of what they're looking at. Actually, he might actually be looking at her as well, but it doesn't matter. Because she's looking at us, and she's unaware of where everyone else's eyes are. And while she's unaware of where her eyes are, they're looking at her rack. Looking at her rack. Just staring at it. So I didn't realize that this was actually even extra layers of hypocrisy, because Scott Kurtz actually commissioned Frank Cho to draw this comic. So he's pissing and moaning about the art that Frank Cho draws, while commissioning Frank Cho to draw these types of drawings. And I don't have a problem with this. It's actually kind of clever. But Scott Kurtz, clearly has a problem with this. Fucking hypocrite. That actually makes it worse. Just like with the Doug to Naple, Scott Kurtz knows the kind of things Frank Cho draws. He knows about what Frank Cho's about, but then he goes ahead and works with Frank Cho. Again, Scott Kurtz is a bigger idiot than I initially thought. And then this is the final one. Inside Scott's old office. Wait a minute. What's that? What's that? It's this. It's this sexy little getup. By the way, these are two very contrasting styles, the bear face and her, but whatever. And these are some of Scott Kurtz's notes. Number 4 specifically, because that's this. Frank Cho's wonderful drawing of Jade on a bearskin rug. I desperately want to get this colored and made into a poster. So Scott Kurtz worked with Frank Cho several times, while simultaneously saying that Frank Cho is some sort of sexist whatever. He clearly enjoys the art, and he clearly doesn't have a problem commissioning Frank Cho or getting Frank Cho's artwork. While, again, this is the type of hypocrisy we've come to expect from an attention-seeking, cantankerous asshole. And so, let's just go to the next little thing here, where, oh my, speaking of hypocrisy, I don't know who this Emmett Initiative is, but he looks like a soy boy. So let's just read this. Oh, I don't know why Comicsgate is called Comicsgate. They don't really seem to produce a lot of comics. It looks like their creative output is mostly video streams, angry tweets, and crowdfunding. You just contradicted yourself, Emmett, you fucking idiot. Crowdfunding is part of most of our creative output. Whoops. It's the opposite of why Wednesdays are awesome. And here comes Scott Kurtz, the self-righteous hypocritical moron. Emmett, what are you talking about? These guys have been at it for 3 years, and some of them are on issue 2. Oh, no, excuse me. I did that wrong. Emmett, what are you talking about? These guys have been at it for 3 years, and some of them are in issue 2. Now, like I mentioned earlier, Scott Kurtz has not just one Kickstarter, but 2 failed Kickstarters. Or at least not failed, but he took the money, and I don't know if he ate the money, he mistook it for food and ate it, or whatever, but he's got 2 Kickstarters, one that raised $34,000, and another one that raised over $100,000 that he hasn't delivered on. So, last time I checked, everyone has delivered the actual comics. Furthermore, some of the comics are not actually sequential, like Adam Post. He doesn't actually make issue 1 or issue 2. He makes this standalone comic. I mean, yes, he did have a sequel with College of the Dead, but he also has several series going on, like The Mermaids, and then he's also going to be a military-themed Funny Animals comic. So not all the comics are actually sequential. Anyway, the point is, he's talking shit about people not delivering comics over 3 years. But again, this self-righteous hypocritical moron has unfulfilled comics. And there's nobody... there's nobody in Comicsgate who is as late as this self-righteous moron. Nobody is as late as this. Nobody in Comicsgate is this late. Nobody. Even the people who have been written off as grifters, like Critias and, to some extent, Andrew Huerta, they're not this late. So again, Scott Kurtz is a moron and a hypocrite. But let's continue. This is all because Scott Kurtz likes to stick his nose in other people's business and self-righteously act like he's better than everyone else. He's done this before, and he's tried to go after Comicsgate, going all the way back to September of 2017. The bad person everyone in comics is upset about right now has more Twitter followers today than yesterday. That's his goal. Think about it. Let me stop you there. The actual goal is to just express his opinion. He's not necessarily picking fights like you are, Scott Kurtz, you moron. Your boy Zach, Diversity in Comics, he just makes his tweets. He posts it online, and then people pick fights with him. He did actually, let me just walk that back a little bit. He did actually pick some fights, but the entire industry, including people who are not part of the industry like Scott Kurtz, came down on him and gave him more attention than what he was giving. And they probably thought that, and that's actually for most people in Comicsgate, but so it was vastly disproportional. And Scott Kurtz, you should actually know better, because you've been the game in 2017. You've been at it for 15 years, so you should have known the game instead of attacking Comicsgate. So anyway, he goes back and forth with Lost Sailor. The point is, this piece of shit, Scott Kurtz, has been picking fights with Comicsgate for a while. He's actually picking fights with everybody for a while. Like I mentioned in video 1, he came out of nowhere to start trying to instigate fights with the Brightwisers and made what I interpreted as veiled threats against their business. He's Doug TenNapel's friend. I also want to remind people that Doug TenNapel does engage in whisper networks to rally morons to his side to try and attack people, like Edwin Boyette, the guy who claimed he worked in construction, but then the place he worked at closed back in 2015, or Late Night Comics, the guy who attacked Darwin Cook's wife, and he was making veiled threats, allegedly making blackmail threats, and eventually the FBI had to get involved. Those are Doug TenNapel's friends that Doug TenNapel seeks out. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that when it comes to but picking fights, etc. And Scott Kurtz, like I said, he has a long history of that, as we see here from Comics Alliance. An image no longer available. But here, this one was just Scott Kurtz being a general asshole. For example, I want to quickly read through this in just my normal voice. Another day, another Wizards controversy. This one basically the sort of delicious, fatty chum that the internet loves to feed upon, as it involves both the infamously cantankerous PvP creator Scott Kurtz unleashing the scathing bile that seems to continue to burn within him, and the depressingly easy target that is Wizard Comics. Now, as a reminder, this was written way back in 2009, so again, 11 years ago. This is, and longer, Scott Kurtz has been picking fights with people and being a piece of shit for such a long time. Anyway, continuing, it all began when a sales manager for the Wizard conventions, which recently started a con war with New York Comic Con to the delight of no one, sent Kurtz an email asking him to attend their upcoming conventions. And while I don't think it would have taken much to make Kurtz unleash his pent-up rage about the magazine and its tactics, the sales guy managed to cram his foot in his mouth, literally within the first 2 words of the letter, by addressing it to Kurt, which is in no way Scott Kurtz's name. Cue the open letter, which is not available. It's been deleted. Where Kurtz responded with the humility and grace that we've come to expect. That's sarcasm, by the way. As I've stated before, Scott Kurtz is a piece of shit. We've come to expect by attacking the Wizard guy for failing to recognize him as, and I quote, a pioneer in my field and a taste maker with a large podium. Taste maker with a large podium. He's basically admitting that At least in his heyday, he was a bully. That's what tastemakers are. There's really not a whole lot to say it. I mean, that's not what tastemakers are supposed to be, but examples have shown over the past 20 years that that's what tastemakers are. They're bullies. And gatekeepers, by the way. They're bullies and tastemakers. With a large podium, and then proceeding to reenact the Dakin versus Punisher fight by verbally dismembering the guy and throwing him into a sewer. He closes the letter with a quick Bro 5 over how, yeah, Eliza Dushku is pretty bangable, then tells the guy to go stick everything else where the sun don't shine, and he's out. Now again, the letter has been deleted from Scott Kurtz's PvP online website. I don't know if that's because it just didn't get saved and he did some sort of server update, or if he actually does occasional purges to hide the evidence that he's a piece of shit. Not that it would do any good, because the internet is forever for a lot of other places that he doesn't have control over, like this really old Comics Alliance article. Anyway, the writer, Laura Hudson, goes on to talk about the problems at Wizard, but that's not the point. Just like when I was talking about how your boy Zach gets a metric fuck ton of shit that he doesn't way more in proportion to what he deserves, Scott Kurtz was just a piece of garbage to this guy who was just sending him a letter. And again, here's another example of that. Going back to 2007, Scott Kurtz gets in another fight. So this is a few days old, but I saw this exchange between PvP Scott Kurtz and some other webcomic guy I've never heard of. To me, the interesting thing here isn't that there's a fight between some folks of the web, nor that it's got to do with PvP yet again. Again, Scott Kurtz getting into fights is very prolific, nor that Gail Simone got involved. I wish I could see it, but I just couldn't find the actual fight. What's interesting is that this is a total setup from a guy who is less famous than Kurtz to get attention, and everyone seems to have fallen for it. So basically, what he's saying is, this is one of the rare instances where someone picks a fight with Scott Kurtz, and Scott Kurtz is not the actual instigator. But, seeing as how Scott Kurtz himself was one of the quote-unquote pioneers of whatever, he should know that this is a game. Anyway, this is a story that got picked up from Lying in the Gutters. So anyway, yeah, this is just talking about the odious practice in and of itself of picking fights for attention. And again, I'm not tagging in Scott Kurtz. I am not picking a fight with Scott Kurtz. I have no intention of Scott Kurtz ever seeing this. I don't care if he does, but again, I'm not picking a fight with Scott Kurtz because I'm not tagging him in like Scott Kurtz seems to do almost every other time. Anyway, speaking of picking fights for absolutely no reason, here's Scott Kurtz picking yet another fight. I guess my question is, how is Indiegogo okay with a guy saying boo-hoo, fuck you to a cancer patient being on their platform? I know Kickstarter booted Comicsgate. Why doesn't Indiegogo? I guess they want to remain neutral? I don't get it. Actually, you do get it, Scott Kurtz. This is you sticking your nose in other people's business. And by the way, Kickstarter booted Comicsgate, and then Kickstarter unionized. And then Kickstarter had sweeping, massive layoffs. Speaking of which, there's a funny little thing on Kickstarter where there's an IP theft Batman comic that's been set up. We're going on day number 5 now, and it hasn't been booted. So, again, this guy, I. Christensen, is throwing up some money here. And then Scott Kurtz says, sad but true. Well, you know what? Indiegogo is not Kickstarter. In fact, Scott Kurtz, you don't know anything about Indiegogo. So, fuck off. And so again, this is, like I mentioned earlier, I was trying to figure out why does Scott Kurtz keep sticking his nose in a Comicsgate business, or just, it's clearly a topic he knows nothing about, as exemplified by him trying to duck on Comicsgate for not fulfilling, when it's clear that the only problem is Scott Kurtz. And he has a long history of this. So here he is again, like the day before. Tess, Pretend I'm turning 50 next year and some technology is challenging and frightening. How do I blockchain? What is a blockchain? Asking for a friend. Test Valor. What kind of voice am I? I did the Scott Kurtz voice wrong. Pfft. Actually, I did it wrong in my previous one, but whatever. Here you go. There's the Iron Spike where she, Iron Spike, that's Spike Trotzman. Or Trotzman? I think that Trotzman. Anyway, you have to run it on your desktop. Sometimes it times out, so you have to refresh and try it again. Do it to any account you find participating in harassment. And here's what Spike says. Cause the fuckboys come out to play whenever someone dares to notice sexism, gonna renew my blockchain recommendation. So this is actually going all the way back to 2016. But Spike actually has something very interesting to say about Scott Kurtz. Lol. FYI, Tess. Scott Kurtz is the one who went around telling a friend I was too black and uneducated to make it in comics. He's blocked. Uh-oh. That's pretty spicy. Do go on, Spike Trotzman. Do go on. And go on she does. Yikes! I know a few people that had shit happen with him back in the day. Even I did, but I never knew he did that. I'm sorry that happened to you. You sure showed his ass, though, didn't you? Enough that he pretends he has no idea why he's persona non grata around me and everyone I know, at least. That's no surprise, honestly. I've known you since our bomb shelter comics days. You're one of the smartest people in comics. It was pretty damn easy to tell back then. Oh, bless you, you so kind. What? That's pretty wild. So you mean to tell me that Scott Kurtz is a racist? That's actually not surprising. Not surprising at all, considering what a piece of shit he is. Y'all want to see what... Now, this is going back to 2015. Let's just listen to this in all its glory.
Background, but I'm going to point out one especially that has stuck with me over the years, which is particularly interesting to me because it was said to a close friend. And it was said by an established professional who should be fucking grateful right now that I am about 1,000 times more decent than he will ever be because I'm not naming names. My friend was told by this person, don't hang out with Spike and don't listen to anything Spike says because she doesn't have the background or the education to make it in comics.
Oof. That's not a good look. But again, I don't know who Scott Kurtz is. So, I'm not the one who's working with him like Doug TenNapel did. And also, Scott Kurtz worked with Doug TenNapel. So, I didn't know who... Well, I kind of knew who Doug TenNapel was. But, I'm not working with these trash tier subnormals who are just complete fucking assholes. But they do. They know all about each other and they just work with each other anyway. Then if they get called out on something, they just, oh, I had no idea so-and-so was like that. I had no idea. But yeah, so that's telling. So that's Scott Kurtz. But we've got one more little thing here. Let's go here.
It's over. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
She's talking about Comicsgate.
We have always been here, and now we are part of the production process. And
that's Comicsgate.
If you have a problem with that, I don't really care.
Fuck off, Scott. Oh, Comicsgate, oh.
But at the same time, Mr., education and background, I'm not fooling myself. I know there are people like that in positions of power, and I know that they're not consciously interested in making sure I'm not heard, but maybe on some level they justify it to themselves with, well, the world's not ready.
The world's not ready for Comicsgate.
You know, the Obama line, the world's not really ready. Maybe in a few years, not now. The world's not ready. But Kickstarter means I
Indiegogo.
don't have to go through these people.
We don't have to go through you, Scott Kurtz.
It means I can basically invent a means of financing and creating the books that I want to make, and clearly lots of other people want to read. And that is what scares them. And
yeah, that is what scares them. That's why the industry pros are losing their fucking minds and attacking Comicsgate all of a sudden, even though the entire industry of comics is a den of iniquity and a hive of scum and villainy. You know, sex abusers, they have to take vows promising not to rape women. They've got more and more minorities coming out and saying, yeah, these people are a bunch of fucking racists. They treat minorities awful. They treat people on the LGBTQ plus spectrum awful. They're all starting to come out of the woodwork because they're getting sick and tired of your bullshit from the industry establishment, and they're coming out of the woodwork too. And that's why these pros and these nobodies like Scott Kurtz are attacking Comicsgate like never before. Well, I don't want to say like never before. It was really out of control in 2017 and early 2018. But let's hear a little bit more from Spike Trotman as she speaks about the ideals of Comicsgate before there was a Comicsgate.
when I look back right now, I sort of try to put it in a place. I try to compartmentalize it in a non-personal kind of thing. It's not a specific fear and hatred of me and what I'm doing. It's a fear and hatred of something inexorable that they can't stop.
That's right. Amen, sister. They can't stop Comicsgate, and they're afraid. It's people like Scott Kurtz, whose time has long passed, and he's just trying to grasp the last throes of relevancy. He can't stop us. Patrick Zurcher was on a tear virtue signaling like never before. Probably because there's skeletons in his closet about being a sex pest. I don't know, but that seems to be the trend. He can't stop us. Tom King, pretty sure there's skeletons in his closet, if not in comics, then at the CIA. He can't stop us. His thrill of harassing and attacking Asians like Dean Cain and Jai Lee, he's just bitter and jealous and trying to deflect from the skeletons in his closet. But you know what? The Scott Kurtzes of the world, the Patrick Zurchers, the Women in Comics Blackmail Whisper Network group, they can't stop us. Anyway, that has been my 3-part little series on Scott Kurtz, the piece of shit. He's really just awful. Now, like I said, I didn't want to keep going and going and going about all the fights that Scott Kurtz has been in. You can just tell by the articles that he's been at it for a very long time, picking fights with people. Anyway, hit that like button and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.